week, Google dropped Gemini 3 and the whole world is seeing them for who they really are, the best positioned company to win artificial intelligence.
OpenAI declaring code red as the AI race intensifies.
Shares of Alphabet hitting all-time highs.
Google Gemini is a great AI program to use. I found it better than ChatGPT.
Google has just turned the entire AI war upside down as Gemini 3 storms the battlefield and puts ChatGPT's once untouchable dominance in real danger. And while Gemini keeps gaining momentum across tests, tools, and industry endorsements, ChatGPT is starting to look like the king that might finally be losing its crown.
And that's what we're having. Competition is causing Google to say, we are the big dog and we are driving hard. And ChatGPT's lead caused Google to say, hey, if you want to win the championship, you got to beat the champion.
For years, the hierarchy of artificial intelligence felt almost permanent. OpenAI sat firmly at the top. Microsoft powered the enterprise engine behind it. NVIDIA printed mountains of cash selling the chips that fueled the entire revolution. And Google, the company that literally invented the transformer architecture behind modern AI, looked like the strange outsider watching its own invention take over the world. But that story is dead. Because Gemini 3 did not just challenge ChatGPT, it cracked the entire perception of who is actually winning this war.
To OpenAI saying yes, Google caught up and there will be some rough vibes ahead. And don't forget, just 18 months ago, people were calling for Sundar, the CEO of Google, to step down because seemingly they were so far behind and couldn't get their act together to catch up and dominate artificial intelligence. Now we're here and they are incredibly well positioned to win.
After using ChatGPT for 3 years, tech investor Benioff says just 2 hours with Gemini 3 changed everything. Faster reasoning, sharper images, better video. And now he says he's not going back.
Google released Gemini 3, its most powerful language model yet, and it was so much better than GPT-5 that, in response, OpenAI declared a code red. That's what's been making most of the headlines lately. But here's the thing, Gemini 3 isn't just a threat to OpenAI. Google is now competing with NVIDIA, Oracle, Microsoft, Meta, AMD, basically every AI company you could name, and they're doing it in a way that no other company possibly could.
After Gemini 3 dropped, something strange happened inside OpenAI. Leadership quietly acknowledged that Google had been doing exceptional work in pre-training. They admitted the company was facing real competitive pressure. They said they may need to catch up in certain areas. Read that again. OpenAI said it may need to catch up. For 3 years, every company on Earth was chasing OpenAI. Every startup, every tech giant, every research lab was trying to close the gap with GPT. Now OpenAI is looking over its shoulder at Google. That is not a small development. That is a complete reversal of the narrative that has defined the entire AI industry since 2022. Most people completely missed it.
Basically, since ChatGPT first came out, OpenAI has had a significant lead in terms of model performance against every other AI and major tech company on the planet. But now, that gap in performance has basically been reduced to zero. And in some cases, Google and even Anthropic are exceeding ChatGPT's performance.
So what actually happens when you put these two models head-to-head in real tests? The results were not what most people expected. Take a pure logic puzzle. The task was to measure exactly 15 minutes using only a 7-minute hourglass and an 11-minute hourglass. ChatGPT produced a technically correct answer. Gemini produced the optimal solution with cleaner reasoning and fewer steps. In logic problems, the path to the answer matters as much as the answer itself. Then came a visual generation test. Both models were asked to create an infographic comparing Bluetooth audio codecs. ChatGPT first described the infographic, needed a second prompt to actually generate it, and the final result looked cluttered.
Yeah, every single one of them, let's see what happens. So Gemini is the one you just did. The middle one is ChatGPT, and then is the last one Perplexity?
Yes.
Okay.
See Gemini, see how fast it was already going?
Yeah. Yep.
Gemini produced a clean, well-structured infographic on the very first prompt. Then came a visual reasoning test where both models had to identify the top faces of dice in an image. Both missed one answer, but Gemini walked through the reasoning step by step. explaining each die before giving its conclusion. Across every test, the pattern was consistent. Gemini was faster, cleaner, and more structured in its thinking. The difference was big enough to trigger a question that almost no one asked before. Is ChatGPT still the best model? Now here is where the story gets deeply ironic.
Ever since Google's case ended, they've been releasing AI products left and right. Veo 3 and Nano Banana, their video and image generation tools, are now, without a doubt, the best in the market. And Gemini 3 was literally so much better than GPT-5 that OpenAI declared a code red. But this isn't even just about chatbots anymore. I mean, sure, OpenAI is in crisis mode, but you know who's also under threat? Nvidia, Oracle, Meta, Microsoft, AMD, Anthropic, Apple. Google is now competing with all of them.
Go back to 2017. A team of Google researchers published a paper called "Attention is All You Need." Inside that paper was a new architecture called the Transformer. That single architecture is now the backbone of ChatGPT. It powers Claude. It powers Gemini itself. It powers almost every generative AI model that exists on Earth today. The technology behind the entire AI revolution, the actual engineering foundation that made all of this possible, came out of Google's own research lab. Google invented the future, then watched other companies race ahead and commercialize it first. Gemini 3 is not Google playing catch-up. It is Google reclaiming its own invention. If you're enjoying this breakdown of the AI war and want deeper analysis like this, make sure you hit like and subscribe.
Google Gemini 3 Pro, Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, sent an internal memo to staff warning of tough times ahead. Here are some direct quotes from that memo. Google has been doing excellent work recently in every aspect, and the context there is particularly in pre-training. We know we have some work to do, but we are catching up. So catching up, not that they're staying ahead, they're catching up. We need to stay focused through short-term competitive pressure, so Google is putting pressure on. In other words, OpenAI's lead has been eroded and Gemini has caught up and even surpassed ChatGPT in several areas.
The real question is not why Google fell behind. The real question is how a company sitting on the most profitable business model in history managed to stay in the fight at all, and then quietly win it. Google had some of the best AI researchers on Earth and more computing infrastructure than almost anyone. But it also had something no startup has to worry about: everything to protect. Search and advertising generate tens of billions every quarter. Conversational AI threatened that engine directly. If people stop searching and start asking AI for answers, the ad machine weakens.
Backed by Google's massive database, and can often pull in a wider range of up-to-date knowledge, especially when it comes to web searches or topics that require the most recent data. Gemini has been praised for its ability to understand and predict more natural conversation turns. This can be helpful when you're discussing multi-step family history research or deeper genealogical concepts.
That is not a failure of vision. That is the most brutal strategic dilemma in modern business. Move too fast and you burn down your own house. Move too slow and someone else burns it down for you. Most companies caught in that trap collapse. Google did not. It absorbed the pressure, took the hits, and kept building. Yes, there was the Bard disaster, a hallucinated demo that wiped billions off the stock in a single day. Yes, the narrative formed that Google had gone soft. That story spread fast and lasted longer than it deserved. But narratives are not the same as reality. While the world was writing Google's obituary, Google was engineering its comeback. Gemini 3 was not a stumble toward relevance. It was the moment a giant that had been quietly reloading finally fired. And when it did, the whole industry felt it. But the most underreported part of the entire Gemini story has nothing to do with the chatbot.
Already a $3 trillion company. So a 22% increase in market capitalization, where it's already at $3 trillion, is insane to think about. And all of that is because people are realizing, well, now they have Gemini 3. It's an incredibly good model.
Google quietly released a reasoning model called Deepthink. This is not a conversational assistant designed to help you write emails or plan your week. It is a model built from the ground up for science, mathematics, engineering, and research-level problem-solving. The benchmark results were extraordinary across algorithmic reasoning, advanced mathematics, and abstract problem-solving. On one competitive programming benchmark, Deepthink performed at a level comparable to top human programmers. Think about what that means. Not better than average. Comparable to elite-level programmers who compete professionally.
GPT 3.5, the first model ChatGPT shipped with, was revolutionary, and by the time they released GPT-4, everyone else was still catching up to them. But GPT-5 was different. To a lot of people, it felt less like a breakthrough and more like a minor upgrade. Plus, by this point, OpenAI's lead was gone. Google's video and image generation models were already much better than OpenAI's, and in November 2025, they released Gemini 3, which outperformed GPT-5 on basically every benchmark you could imagine.
And it is already showing up inside real research environments with real results. Deepthink identified an error inside a published, peer-reviewed mathematics paper. It optimized parameters in semiconductor fabrication processes. It contributed to physical engineering design challenges that required domain-level knowledge. In one particularly striking case, it flagged a flaw in a mathematical proposition that researchers had initially accepted as correct. The researchers checked. The model was right. This is not AI that helps you draft a cover letter. This is AI operating as an active research collaborator, catching mistakes that trained human experts missed.
Whatever benchmarks they break on any given Tuesday isn't really what's important. What matters is this. This is a graph of the Gemini app's monthly active users, and now you see why OpenAI declared a code red.
Then Google built something on top of Deepthink that pushed the concept even further. A system called Aletheia. Most AI tools give you one answer and stop. Aletheia works in a continuous loop. It generates a solution, checks it for errors, identifies the weakest points, revises, and runs the cycle again. That process lets it pursue multiple solution paths simultaneously, discard flawed reasoning as it goes, and progressively strengthen the ideas that hold up. In testing, Aletheia reportedly solved several previously unsolved mathematics problems, wrote a complete research paper, and generated insights that researchers believe could survive academic peer review. This is no longer the territory of chatbots. This is infrastructure for accelerating scientific discovery itself.
It gives you a different answer where it tells you that you have to flip both of them, and then when the 7-minute hourglass runs out, you flip it again, and then when the 11-minute hourglass runs out, you flip the 7 one again, which is only halfway through its work, but it's got that extra 4 minutes of sand in there now, and so when you flip it halfway through its pouring, you get exactly 15 minutes, and that is the optimum answer. So well done to Gemini. So I think on the scoreboards we can say that Gemini 3 is leading ChatGPT 1-0 at this point.
Now, step back and look at the full picture because the AI war most people are watching is the wrong one. The chatbot debate, which model answers a question better, is a sideshow. The actual battlefield has already moved. It is about autonomous agents that execute multi-step tasks without human supervision. It is about AI embedded inside enterprise software that companies cannot rip out once it is integrated. It is about coding systems that write and debug production software. It is about research collaboration at a scale humans alone cannot achieve. AI is not becoming a smarter search engine. It is becoming the infrastructure layer underneath everything. That is exactly where Google becomes extraordinarily difficult to beat.
What was groundbreaking about Gemini 3 was that not only was it better than every other model at the time, it was trained exclusively with Google's TPUs. Gemini 3 is proof that NVIDIA is no longer the only company making AI chips at the cutting edge, and this is a massive threat to them. Google's TPUs are at least on par with theirs, and they literally just announced that they plan to double production by 2028.
Most AI companies own one slice of the technology stack. A great model but no hardware. Powerful cloud but no consumer platform. Google owns nearly the entire stack end to end. It designs and builds its own chips called tensor processing units, engineered specifically for AI training and inference. Gemini was trained on those TPUs. While every other AI company is competing for the same limited pool of NVIDIA GPU supply, Google trains its most powerful models on hardware it controls completely. That is a structural cost and speed advantage that compounds over time. On the cloud side, Gemini is being embedded directly into enterprise data workflows, developer tools, and business applications. Enterprise AI is where the serious, recurring revenue lives, not consumer subscriptions.
It gets even worse. Up until very recently, Google was only building TPUs so that they could rent them out through Google Cloud. But now they're competing even more directly with Nvidia by selling them outright. They just cut a deal to sell 1 million TPUs to Anthropic. There's also rumors that they may be selling them to Meta and OpenAI too. Those are some of Nvidia's biggest customers. Google is literally breaking their monopoly, which is why naturally their stocks are going in opposite directions. Now, this is already a fantastic position for Google to be in. They're joining the market that made Nvidia the world's most valuable company.
But the single most powerful advantage Google holds is not chips or cloud. It is distribution at a scale that is almost impossible to fully appreciate. Google controls the platforms that billions of people use before they even finish their morning coffee. Search, YouTube, Gmail, Chrome, Android, Maps, Google Docs, Google Drive. OpenAI has to convince people to change their habits, download new apps, and build new routines around its products. Google does not have to convince anyone of anything. It can place AI directly inside tools that people already depend on and cannot easily walk away from. That kind of embedded distribution is not a feature. It is a moat.
You know, back when ChatGPT came out, everyone was talking about how much of a threat AI was to search. But what I think we all underestimated was how beneficial it would be to Google Cloud. Right now, their sales are growing at an annual rate of 30%, and it's now nearly 20% of Google's revenue. And when it actually comes to AI, well, they figure that one out as well.
History repeats this pattern consistently. The pioneer who builds a new technology rarely ends up as the company that dominates it at scale. The pioneer creates the category and absorbs all the early risk and embarrassment. Then, the company with deeper resources, wider infrastructure, and broader distribution arrives and scales the technology to a level the pioneer simply cannot match alone. OpenAI deserves enormous credit for igniting this revolution. Without it, none of this conversation exists.
Right now, we are just barely starting to see Google's absolute dominance in AI.
But the company positioned to deploy AI at truly planetary scale, across every layer of technology, every platform, every enterprise system, and every device, has been building that position for 2 decades. Google was never losing the AI war. It was loading. Gemini 3 was the moment it finally fired. And right now, for the first time in this entire AI era, Google is the one leading it. The AI race just changed overnight. Is this the moment Google takes control of the AI future? Or will OpenAI strike back and reclaim the throne? Drop your thoughts in the comments.